reality of phantoms and monsters. They exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Phantoms and Monsters Radio, where we explore the strange and the unexplained. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, and thanks for joining me. Now, if you enjoy our content, please subscribe, like, and share our presentations, and please feel free to place a comment as well. Super Chat is active during the show, and so please show your support for Fans of Monsters Radio by clicking the dollar icon underneath the chat. You can also support the channel by clicking the Super Thanks icon or the Buy Me a Coffee link and banner. Your consideration is very much needed and appreciated. So tonight, Bill Bean is known as the spiritual warrior. He has performed hundreds of exorcisms and spiritual deliverances worldwide, addressing anything from curses, blocks, attachments, obsession, oppression, to possession by demonic spirits. He's also a life coach, providing guidance and advice on how to be strong in mind, body, and spirit. And with great sensitivity and understanding, Bill helps his clients to find solutions to a wide array of life's challenges. He works with each client to help them build on all their strengths to identify and achieve life goals. His most recent book is titled Tales From An Exorcist, from the case files of Reverend William J. Bean. So, Bill, my friend, thanks for coming on this evening.
Thank you, Lon. It's always a pleasure to be on with you, and glad that your recovery is going well. And thank everybody out there for tuning in tonight.
Well, I appreciate that. The book, interesting. I looked it over the other day, and you got a lot in there. And the thing that interests me is you kind of really going into more detail about a lot of what you experienced when you were younger, living down in outside of Glen Burnie, Maryland. That's where you were raised at. But as far as what you want to discuss tonight, I'm open for anything. So, you want to talk about specific cases or anything else, please feel free to do that. But I just want you to be able to get the word out about the book and to, get some sales going.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And yeah, I started from the start. I didn't want to rehash, but I thought I can't start this book without letting people know how affected I was and my family was, so it was very important to add that in. And you're right, I added in some more detail than general. It's very difficult, Lon. I've written 10 books. This is my 10th book. But when I'm writing about events that took place with my family, specifically, especially my mother, and my own personal sufferings, it's very difficult, even to this day, because it's painful to relive some of those memories. I wish if there was one thing that I could do, I wish that I could go back in time and change all those things, especially when it comes to the sufferings of my mother. But yeah, I started the book off that way to give the reader an idea that, where I come from, the background I come from, and why God chose me to do this work. I didn't choose to do this. I would never have chosen to do this kind of work in a million years. But God chose me to do it because of the experience and exposure that I've had to these types of things. It makes perfect sense to me now, because when people have suffered high levels of trauma through this type of thing, or anything that would cause that high level of trauma, they sort of retreat within. They become withdrawn. They are not trusting. And the wonderful thing about the work that I do and how God chose me to do it is that people could trust me and they can relate to me because because they know that I have been there. So I could be the most brilliant man in the world and written 100 books, but if I go into a personal situation with somebody and I've never had the experience, well, then we can't come together because we can't relate. I don't truly understand what that person is going through. So I'm very thankful that God chose me to do this work, and that we're able to merge together and sort of break down that barrier, because people can trust me because they know that I've been there. So that's that's what this is really all about. I'm nothing special, Lon. I'm just somebody that God works through to help people. And I'll tell you this, it's the greatest feeling in the world to know that God actually worked through me to help somebody, and to see them move forward and have a quality of life and happiness and peace and joy. That's my MO every day of my life. I pray that God works through me to be a blessing to others. I want to see everybody happy and everybody doing well in life.
Well, that's the most satisfying thing about doing this type of work, with helping with people who have had issues with the paranormal, and seeing the good results as after we have gone in there and helped them. It's a great feeling. It really is. And I understand that. I know that exactly. And as well, when you talk about how people need to trust you, and that's key as well. And a lot of times, and a lot of people who do these type of things don't necessarily have that. They don't have a background. They don't really connect with their clients the way they really should. And I know you and I have both run into cases where there have been other so-called investigators or deliverers or exorcists or whoever that we've had to follow up and kind of start from scratch and try to help the client.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's so sad to hear some of these stories, and I hear a lot of stories also of people that went to their church, went to their priest, went to their pastor, and they were turned away and ridiculed even, and said, you better go get a mental health exam, or what do you want me to do? I'm not trained in this kind of stuff. And just very dismissive and scornful, really, making it seem as if the victim is responsible for the things that are taking place. And it's very sad and unfortunate, and just thankful that I think what happens, with guys like you and I, people see us on TV or they hear us on some type of show or something, and they reach out. And I think, and again, I praise God for making those connections, because in some instances, Lon, there were people ready to commit suicide, and then they were flipping through the channels and happened to see me on one of these shows and recontact me. God worked through me to help them.
Yeah, it is amazing. I've had a couple cases in particular, and one that you knew about as well, where the clients were involved with so much previous to contacting you.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to them, they are so frustrated and so downtrodden. You do have to worry about their state of mind if they're not going to hurt themselves somehow. And I hate that. I mean, that's probably the biggest worry I have when I get involved with a client, is what is their state of mind and how can I change that, and try to help alleviate a lot of that. So, they become cooperative. They do what you ask them to do, and instead of kind of taking the wrong path and just spiraling out of control.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. And unfortunately, I had a case, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. It was in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and helped the family. And the husband, father, he had served, I believe, in Iraq. Good man. Unfortunately, was battling some issues with addiction, substance abuse, things of that nature. I've helped a lot of soldiers that came back from war with PTSD and then had those types of issues attached.
Mhm.
And I did everything that I could do by the power of God working through me. And I thought that, I spent time with the family out there, and I thought that God worked through me to have a breakthrough with them. Everything seemed to be okay. And then unfortunately, Lon, I received a text message, I guess about a month ago or so, and from the wife informing me that he did take his life. And that's like a kick in the teeth to
Oh,
me. I
absolutely.
take it very personally. It's very sad, and my heart goes out to his wife and their children. And I just feel terrible over that. So as good as I feel when the success story happens, that's how horrible I feel when something like that takes place as well.
Yeah, I think it's hard for some people to understand how that, how that can be for people like us that try to help people in these type of things. And when you step away from them for maybe just a while, and then things go back to the way they were, if not worse. And it's happened to
Yeah,
me too. So yeah, I get it. I
it's
get it.
just horrible, and I feel so bad for his wife and the family and all. They had little children when I
Mm.
was out there. They've grown a little bit, but still, I mean, it's just an awful, awful thing. And again, I go right back to my sufferings and how my family was destroyed by demonic forces. And my dad left home when I was 9, and then my mom uh, and my grandmother died 2 months apart from each other. These were the two closest people to me in my life. They were suddenly gone. And that affected me in such a way, Lon, that I didn't even want to live anymore. I was seeking death. I wasn't going to take pills or slip my wrist or anything, but I lived my life on the edge for many, many years. I've been tons of life-threatening situations, and I wanted to die. I didn't want to be here anymore. And so again, it's gut-wrenching to me when people go through these things, and then when something horrible like that takes place. It's just boy, oh boy, oh boy. But for every horrible story like that, there's probably hundreds of wonderful stories to where the people overcame, and by the power of God, working through me, help them to overcome just horrific circumstances and then move forward in life. So I have great joy there. And when I get messages from people, and I say this and I continue, I'll say it again tonight on my little show, that if you want to make my day, give me the good news. Tell me how good everything is going. Tell me how empowered you are. Tell me how your life has taken such a tremendous turn. And even in my own life, Lon, coming from that kind of background, so like I said, my mother and grandmother were gone 2 months and 2 days apart. My mother died at the age of 44 from a cerebral hemorrhage. My dad was shot to death at age 48. And so
Mm.
neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50. My mother's mother, had died from a series of heart attacks. So then many other family members also passed under mysterious and tragic circumstances over the years. So it was a process for me in living a life of just absolute darkness, and never had any hope or thoughts of having a future or anything like that. I was just trying to get through each day. I grew up on the streets. I hung out with some of the worst people. Most of those people are dead or in prison now, and I could have very easily been there myself. And so coming from a background like that, it required me to really, really be sincere and authentic when I decided to make God first in my life. And
Hmm.
I was drinking, I was using drugs, I was violent, and I was living a life, a hellish life, really. And I asked God to please help me. I was sincere. I asked God to please take it from me, and He heard my prayer, Lon, and He took it from me. I never went to one AA, NA meeting, nothing like that. God just completely took it from me. And then I had to make this transformation. It was not easy. I had to go from the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living into what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward. It was not an easy process or transition. But once I got there, and I only got there through my faith, I was so thankful to God, and I was able to start a brand new chapter and brand new season in my life. And I felt free from all of it. And never, ever did I think that I would be doing this kind of work. I just wanted to be free. I wanted to have a normal life. I wanted to enjoy my life and have some happiness and peace. But then God started to put a calling on me. And it was so strong, I would wake up feeling it. It would be with me during the day, and then it would be the last thing I would think of when I went to sleep. Now, my story came out, I want to say I probably started going public and doing interviews 1995, 96, somewhere.
Yeah, that's about the time, because I remember all that, because I was living near you.
Absolutely. And you remember Dr. Bob Hieronymus. That was the first interview that I did, 21st Century Radio. And I thank Dr. Bob for that. And so that's where it all started. And I started talking about the story. And then a haunting featured my story. I think it was, September 7th, 2006.
Right.
And so from that moment forward, I was really getting a lot of messages from people from all over the world. And some of those messages were asking for help. And I thought, I can't help these people. I don't know what to, I didn't know what to do. I try and refer them to other people, but I thought, there's nothing that I can do. And then God started putting that calling on me. And I thought, God must have a sense of humor, because how in the world could someone like me do anything to be a help to and for anybody? And so I resisted it for quite a while. And then I realized that, this feeling was not going away, and God was really trying to get my attention about this. So that's when I thought, well, maybe I can do something to start helping people. And I started some serious studies, biblical studies, ancient history, ancient religions, all this kind of stuff. I studied all that stuff, and I was thankful for it, because it broadened my intellect, and with wisdom came empowerment. And I felt that suddenly I had the confidence to maybe be able to go out there and help people. Was still unsure, but continued in these studies, and knowledge truly is power. And more people kept messaging me. And then finally I became an ordained non-denomination minister and started going out to people. And one of the first cases was in Maryland, family under siege, really, really horrific case. And here I am, fresh into this. And I knew from the very moment that I set foot on their property what my purpose in life was and still is. And it was really a great feeling, although I was under duress in a serious demonic situation. It was a great feeling at the same time to know and to get that confirmation that God was serious, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it started there, and it's gone on. I've helped people, guys work through me to help people in 54 countries around the world and counting. And I look back on some of this, Lon, and I just shake my head. I can't believe it. This is just the process. And I write about this in the book as well. Just the process of going through the things that I've gone through in my own personal life. And then as this spiritual warrior, the amount of travel, the amount of cases, the exhaustion, the burnout, the dangerous, life-threatening situations that I've been in as a spiritual warrior, it's all in the book. And it truly is supernatural in itself, how God has kept me protected and safe from some really bad situations.
Well, before we talk about a couple of cases, I did want to mention, I've been watching you for 25 years now.
That's amazing.
Before we even met. I mean, I don't think we met until, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, if that long. But I knew all about you. Of course, I saw your interviews when you talked about, with Dark Force when it first came out.
Yeah.
And then you were, like you said, you talked about Bob Hieronymus and
Yeah.
his show. You know, you did interviews in other TV shows, like on 45. You did some interviews.
Oh yeah, Fox
yeah.
45.
So I was watching you. I was pretty close anyway. We were only about 20 miles apart from each other, and but we were around that Baltimore metro area.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing, Lon. That
yeah,
really is.
it
And when I
is.
think of that, 25 years, time
Yeah.
is just going by so fast. It's like, it's just like a blink. Time is going like
Yeah, I
I
know.
just can't believe that that was 25 years ago.
Yep. Interesting.
Well, here we are. And
go ahead.
Go ahead, brother.
Well, I was going to say, I was thinking, I was thinking about when you talked about spiritual warrior. Ken Baker popped up in my mind, and it's been a year now since Ken passed.
It's been maybe a little more than that. I'll tell you, I miss him, Lon, and he was such a. It's funny you bring Kev up now because somebody sent me a video, and it was me with Kev on his show, which you were on that show many times. He loved you. I mean, you were one of his favorite people to come on the show. I mean, he just absolutely loved you.
Yeah, I enjoyed Kev a lot.
Oh, he just, man, he always beamed when Lon Strickler was coming on. He loved that. And so I saw that video that somebody sent to me, and it just, I really miss him. He was a great guy. He was a brilliant little guy. He was informative, great talker. He was a great host, and we certainly had a great show together. And it was all his suggestion. I mean, he already had an established show for many years. He didn't need me, but he suggested, because he knew that I wasn't tech savvy, I couldn't put my own show together how you do it, how he was doing it. And he reached out. Really, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
And then it grew into something that was really great. And love him dearly, miss him. I've had some very vivid dreams of him, Lon, to where he was speaking to me in dreams. Yeah. And I certainly believe that those were visitations. And I told his mom about it. And I'm still in contact with his mom and his brother Kenny. And love the family dearly, and keep them all in prayer. And I miss him. I really do.
I do too.
Guy.
I used to love going on the show when you and Travis and.
Yep, Travis loves you too.
Yeah, I have had Travis on the show a couple of times. He's great.
He had.
I mean, I used to mess with him a lot, but it was we have a good time.
Yeah, and congratulations, Vincent, on your grandchild.
He's only his child. He's not that old. He's not old like me.
Vincent. Vincent
Pearl just walked. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Kev's brother Kenny, they just had he and his fiance just had a child, little Finley.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful little baby. Yeah. So thank you, Vincent, for posting that. And yeah, so now they have a little bit of joy. They're still missing Kev terribly, but I hope.
Oh, I know his mother went through hell with all that. Yeah.
Brother too, all of them. I mean, so I'm praying now that with the arrival of little baby Finley, that it'll bring them some joy. So I believe that Kenny named him Finley Kevin Baker. So
is that right?
Yeah. God bless little Finley.
Well, we do have a question here, and of course, it's going to tie into what I'm going to ask you next. Bernadette asks, "What has been the case that has stood out to you over the years?"
There's many that come right to the top of my head. And I'll tell you, out of all of them, the most severe case was before I became the spiritual warrior. And that took place, and that's in chapter 2 of my book. That happened to a loved one. And I was not the spiritual warrior at that time. That was in the late 80s. And I would have to say, Lon, out of all of the cases of demonic possession that I've been involved in, it's been many, that one was the most severe and had the most intense traits to it out of all of them. I saw the eyes turning black. I heard
Mm.
deep masculine voice coming out of the female. I saw levitation off the bed. I felt superhuman strength against me, and I was a very powerful guy back then. I was a power lifter, and the power that was coming from that entity. So I was like a weakling compared to that. It took every ounce of strength that I had to get one hand from around my throat. So I saw and experienced a door being exploded because the entity, whether it was through the victim or not, a 10-pound dumbbell was thrown at the bedroom door and exploded. It splintered the door. These are things that are off the charts. I saw the invisible force grabbing the victim and ramming the victim's head into a fist. Things that were some things that you would see in horror films. You'd say, "Oh, that's not." It was real. It really took place, and even having those entities speaking to me. And at that time, I didn't know the Bible. I had browsed over the Bible. I didn't. So the entity was making fun and mocking my lack of knowledge of the scriptures, and then reciting scripture after scripture after scripture after scripture in mock of me. You know, at that time, I was still saying, "I bind and rebuke you and cast you out and command you to depart." So I was still trying, but I did not. And I certainly was not where I am now. And therefore, it was, and I got to tell you, Lon, you know, at that time, you know, having come out of a life of trauma and being attacked regularly as a child by demonic forces, and then in adulthood, having to stand against that again, I felt like my knees were buckling, to be honest with you. I was overwhelmed, and it was only by the power of God that I didn't just drop to the floor right there. So God kept me strong through it, and I did my best to battle against it, but I was not prepared for something like that. Certainly not, again, in warfare mode like how I would be now. But I did the best that I could do. And that case lasted for 22 days, and it ended in exorcism. And a Catholic priest came in and performed that exorcism. And an interesting side note there, his life was never the same again after that. Unfortunately for him.
Yeah,
and
I've
I was
seen
right
that
there
too.
beside him, and you know, did everything that I could do to assist him in prayer. But after that was over with, they put him in some type of facility, and it took a friend of mine who was a former police officer and PI to go and investigate and find out what happened. And they placed him in a facility, and they didn't want anybody contacting him. I called the church on one occasion and asked for him. They said no such person exists.
Really?
And my friend really finally did find him and actually went there and talked with him.
Yeah.
And he said that you know, the man lived out his the priest lived out his last days in that place, and was never the same again. So I do appreciate his efforts to come and God working through him to free the victim from that evil. But boy, did he ever pay a price for that. And I'm very sorry for that.
You know, I did a case in Des Moines, Iowa. Not the case that you and I are familiar with. This is on the other side of the state. And a priest had come into the home and was literally chased out. And
I believe
I needed to get some notes on him from him about a year or so later. And I contacted the Archdiocese, and they they wouldn't talk to me about it. I did later find out he quit the priesthood, and it was that case. I tell you, and I have said this before. I have literally seen priests come into a home and just get chased out. I know the Catholic
being attacked as well.
Yeah, I know the Catholic Church concentrates more now on teaching the Catholic rites to specific priests. Now they have this school. They have one here in the United States, actually in Baltimore, I think.
Oh, is that right?
Where they do it with the Archdiocese of Baltimore, but I know over in Rome, they in the Vatican, they have a college or where they teach priests to more in-depth exorcisms and stuff. And apparently it's gotten to the point now where there's just so much need for them. Yeah. And in fact, I've had a couple cases where it just got beyond me that I had to call in a priest. I really did. So
we see this more and more now. I'm more busy than ever. My schedule is jam packed, and there are so many people contacting me for help. I'm trying to get to everybody as quickly as I can, but it's like trying to put a forest fire out with a garden hose. I mean, the people just keep coming, and I think that it's a sign of the times that we are in, and people are being affected mentally, spiritually, and physically. And it's sad and unfortunate, but again, I'm thankful to be here in service to God. Therefore, I'm in service to my fellow man. And I'm almost like a 24/7 operation now, Lon. It's amazing.
I get it.
Sessions, with people 4 or 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning before I even get to bed.
Yeah.
I recently had a case. I had to drive down to, I didn't take a plane. I drove. It took me 12 hours. I drove down to Jacksonville, Florida. Helped the person, went back, got something to eat, showered, changed my clothes, and I drove all the way back. I had an hour and 46 minutes sleep. I drove all the way back home. But that's how busy I am. I had to be back because I have other clients and cases. And so it's just amazing. It truly is. And after I'm done with you, I'll have about an hour before I start my little show. And what my show is about is praying for people. I have probably 600 people on that prayer list. It takes me over 35 minutes to say it all, but it's important because there's so many people in need. And I want those people to know that we're praying for them. We care about them and we want to see them do well. And in some cases, there have been people that have asked to be on the list, or loved ones of those people that have requested for them to be on the list. And some of these people have received healing miracles. And I'm very, very thankful for that. Not everybody. If I said that, then I'd be like one of these charlatans that's, the televangelist or whatever. So that's not true. But there really has been a few of these people that have had terminal situations that is now turned around. And I thank God and praise God for that. So I think it's very powerful when people come together in prayer and real concern and love for each other. I really do think that God hears that and honors that.
I got a question from Vincent. Do you ever have to remove evil human spirits? Can human spirits possess other people?
Well, if it is what you would call human spirits, well, then that is demonic realms, because Yahweh is his name. He gave us free will. So we are free to make our choices. So if someone or something is imposing on our free will, that is not of God, and that would be evil. And so therefore, those types of things would tie in with the demonic realms, and they would have to be cast out and evicted, just like these disembodied demons or whatever it may be. They have no place with us. And as a matter of fact, most people don't realize that we are all in spiritual warfare on a daily basis. Most people have no clue, but it's true. We're living in a world of the unseen, which, if it's true that mankind can only use a small percentage of brain power, well, then that means that there's a whole other world going around us that we can't see or hear or taste or feel or smell. So there's a whole other existence going on around us. And maybe sometimes these types of forces have access from those, other realms to come in via portals or whatever. I mean, you and I have talked many times about Chicago, all the portals there and all the bizarre things that take place there. And, even here in Maryland, a lot of crazy stuff takes place in Pennsylvania. So I do believe that these entities have access through these dimensional doorways.
Bernadette asks, what effects have you personally suffered from doing exorcisms? That's an interesting question.
Well, I'm thankful to God that I have always been protected. Let me tell you, I have been in some life-threatening situations. People that had guns that wanted to shoot me, people that wanted to stab me, slash me. One person was waving around a 12-inch shard of glass that had been broken out from a window. I've had violent confrontations with people, and I thank God for me to be able to control the situation, keep the victim safe, but also keep myself safe. People have spit on me. They've tried to bite me, projectile vomiting, you name it. I've been in, and I list this in the book as well. I've been in just about every type of situation that you can imagine, and God has kept me safe through it all. I'm very thankful for that. But in my personal life, I've got to have peace. So in my home is my sanctuary. I cannot have a bunch of drama going on or craziness. I just can't have it. I've got to have peace, and that helps me to maintain and to recharge and re-energize. I mentioned in the book also about having periods of burnout to where I would wake up in hotels and say, where am I at right now? I wouldn't even know where I was. It took me a minute to understand where I was.
Yeah.
And so I've gone through all these types of things. I've also gone through, and I wouldn't blame this on the demonic realms, although I'm sure the devil and his minions take joy when these things happen. But I've been in good health. I thank God and praise God for that. But I've had some incidents. And as a matter of fact, I'm going through a little something right now. I've got 21 stitches in my forearm right now. I've had these little skin cancers that have popped up. This is like the fourth surgery I've had now. And this is on my forearm. It came up like two little pimples, and they were sort of like side by side. They were circular. And I actually cut into them because I tried to treat them with peroxide and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. It didn't go away, and it stayed there for a while. And finally, I got it checked out. And it's not life-threatening. It's basal cell skin cancer. But you have to get it treated because that stuff aggressively eat into your tissue. And if it does, then you're going to have some serious problems because then they got to remove a lot. And as a matter of fact, Lon, they did remove quite a bit on this forearm from one side or the other. Is a swatch that they removed there. But I'm thankful that it's over with. I pray that it never happens again.
Oh, absolutely.
But these are things that we, have to deal with. And I'm just thankful to God for helping me to maintain and stay in good health. But I'll tell you, I have been in many, many life-threatening situations throughout my life, and especially as this spiritual warrior now.
I believe that most people that do what you do what I do, and do what others do suffer physically, if not mentally, from a lot of this work. I know I have.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe all of what I've had sustained is because of that, but I believe some of it has.
Yeah, the devil delights because he does not want people helping others to be free. So this is, in my opinion, a very calculated plan to enslave mankind. And those that try to do good and stand up and do right and help others are targeted. And this is what I say to people, Lon, because there's a lot of people that come to me and say, you know what? I want to do what you do, and I can do that. And I say, okay, well, did God tell you this? How did this come about? Why are you saying this? And secondly, if you do this, you better be prepared because your life will never be the same again. Once you open that door and step through, you will never be the same again, and you're going to have a target on you. So you better be ready for everything that comes with that. And I think, you know, a lot of people don't realize how serious this is and how big a task and responsibility it is as well, and how life changing it is also.
You know, and I do warn clients about this before I go in to do a case, either remotely or going into an on-site investigation, that these energies know you're coming.
Yes.
They will lash out a day or two before you are coming. Happens every time.
You're right.
It's amazing. It's something that still amazes me. I have, you know, it's gotten to the point now to where when I do go into a case, like I said, either remotely or either coming to a location, I warn them, look, you know, before I get there, it's going to ramp up. It always ramps up before I get there. And, yeah, it never fails. It never fails.
Well, they know eviction time is coming, so they want to do anything and everything that they can to destroy that person before the eviction takes place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Let's see.
I'll tell you another case, Lon. I think it was 2014, and I want to, I write in the book, I protected the identity of the victim and the location and everything. But it happened in 2014, and this individual was completely possessed, female, completely possessed. God worked through me to free her and to deliver her from the entities. But then I had to go through, and it's not over from there. And some people don't understand this as well. This isn't just walking in and performing, you know, this exorcism, spiritual deliverance, then the person's free, and then you just ride off into the sunset. That's not how it works.
No.
And so after that's over with, I have to go through the entire house, making sure that there's no more demons hiding or lurking anywhere in there. So on this occasion, it was a very large home, and I went through the entire home, and then I got to a wide set of steps that went up to the attic area. And I guess they were converting that into like a master bedroom, large there. I go up. On my right, there was a lamp, so it was lit over there, well lit. I started the blessing and cleansing in that area first, and then I had to go over to the other area, which was completely dark. And so I cross over, headed to the dark area, and on the right was a window. I think it was like a double window. There were no blinds or shades or anything, and the moonlight was coming through the window. I would say probably 6 feet in front of that window was a ventilation shaft. And standing in between the window and the ventilation shaft was an entity that stood at least 7 feet tall. I will never forget this. And I was within 10 feet of this entity. At least 7 feet tall, all black, looked hooded, looked like glowing red eyes. And it even had like points coming past the shoulders, almost like a description of a Mothman type of creature. And I'm not saying that's what it was, but similar appearance. And can you imagine this now, Lon? This was 2014. I'm standing within 10 feet of this entity, and I had a Bible in this hand. I had a holy mixture and shaker in this hand. I said, by the mighty power of Yahweh in his mighty and holy name, in Yahshua Jesus the Christ's name, I bind and rebuke you and command you to depart. I cast you out, command you to depart at once. And I shook the shaker 3 times at the entity, and it let out this screech that I have never heard before or since. And it departed, but it rattled the windows, Lon. That's how loud that screech was. I will never, ever forget that as long as I live. And it's only by the power of God that I could stand in front of something like that and take power and authority over it. A lot of people would drop. They'd faint. Some would soil themselves. Some would turn around and run. And I wouldn't blame any of them. But I praise God for working through me to have been able to withstand something like that. And I've, you know, throughout my lifetime, that goes all the way back to childhood, having those types of experiences with those black hooded entities with red eyes. So I'm familiar with it. I've experienced it so many times. And yet there was, again, another instance So that's why it's so important. If you're doing this kind of work, you have got to be very thorough and cover every base and make sure that nothing evil is left behind.
Marla comes up with a very interesting question. Have the cases of possession been mostly children or adults?
Mostly adults.
Yeah.
There have been some, very few. Usually in a child, there is an innocence and protection over a child from newborn to 3 years old. And then that starts to wear off because the world starts to come on to the child.
Mm-hmm.
But usually a child is safe between newborn and 3. And the bulk of these cases that I've been involved in are with adults.
Bernadette asks, do you feel that in some cases certain people actually welcome possession?
Maybe not full possession, but when a person, I've been involved in some of these cases, a person, let's say they like the attention.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they didn't have a real problem. Some have invented it, but some did have supernatural problems, but they loved it because they were getting all this attention. There's a case that comes to mind that I pulled out of that was supposed to be on a haunting. And then when I found out the truth of what was going on, I could no longer be a part of that. And so I pulled out of that case, and they actually went forward and put some other people in that episode. That was one of my cases. And I couldn't be a part of it because I knew fraudulent things were taking place. And so unfortunately, there are people out there that, yes, they do love the attention. They want to be on TV. They want to have movies made and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I've come across.
I have known some cases personally where people have invoked either a succubus or an incubus.
Yeah.
And it's for companionship more than anything else, but it is also
absolutely.
And it doesn't turn out good.
No,
I
was just gonna say,
they always
don't know
regret
what
it.
they're getting themselves into because you might think that that's neat and cool until it's not. And believe me, it'll be revealed when it's not, and then it's going to be a nightmare. And it's also going to be a nightmare to get rid of that, because by legal right, the devil could go to God and say that he can have those demons to be there because that person invoked or invited. So it was either through invitation or invocation. And so now God will allow that through free will. And then it's going to require, again, someone like us to come along and evict these things. And I'm always, my mind is boggled. I just shake my head. And even thinking about a couple of these cases right now, I just, why?
Yeah.
Why would you want that? Why?
I have asked several people that, why in the world would you even do that? Look, I know you're lonely. I know there are issues that have gone on in your life, but doing something like that is just ridiculous. And they regretted every bit of it. Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
I don't know what to say about it other than refrain. If you are out there and you're engaging in something like that, or you're thinking about it, please don't. It'll be the worst mistake you ever made, and you will go through hell getting rid of it.
AJK asked, have you ever seen or experienced any type of levitation in your work?
Yeah. In the case that I mentioned with you a few minutes ago, absolutely. I saw it. And best way to describe it would be an invisible force. And I've seen this on a few occasions, as a matter of fact, but in this one instance, an invisible force lifting the person, and this was off the bed, and then just absolutely dropping them. So they are at least 6 inches or more off the bed, and then just dropped and flopping, right back down on the bed. Now, can you, again, the average ordinary person, they can hear me say this, but if they were really there to see that, can you imagine, Lon? I mean, the average ordinary person, they might faint, in seeing something like that. This is something that is so out of the realm of normal that, some people might even rub their eyes and say, did I just really see, did that really just happen?
Yeah.
But I've seen limbs twisted in ways that the human body cannot move or twist without bones breaking and ligaments tearing. I've seen it. I've seen eyes change to all white, all black, all red. In one case, like a greenish, yellowish color with reptilian slits. I've seen all these things.
Here's a question, kind of a little bit away from what we were talking about. You and I have talked about this, especially on Kev's show, about the black helicopters following you around. Is that still going around? Is that still going on?
Sure is. And I have no explanation for that. It's been going on since 1995, to my knowledge. January 1995 is when I believe that all started. And as a matter of fact, I have footage, Lon, on that Jacksonville trip, which was a couple weeks ago. I had completed, and this has happened quite a bit in some other cases as well. When I come out of a client home after this has taken place, then all of a sudden there's either some type of UFO or a black copter that's over me in a lot of these instances coming out of the home. And this happened down in Jacksonville. I left the client home. I was on the phone with my assistant, Melinda, and the copter came. I'm stopped at a red light, and here comes this copter right over top of me. And so the light changes. I'm telling her, I'm on the phone with her and I'm describing what's happening. She could hear the copter, and I go about a half a mile, and I make a right into a gas station. I had to fill my vehicle up before I went back to the hotel. I'm standing there filling my vehicle up, and here it comes right over top. A short piece of video footage of it. Took a photograph of it as well. This happens all the time, and even in my home. I have an interesting thing that I've made you aware of. It's been going on for a while now. And who are these? I have no idea. Are they human? I'm not completely convinced that they are. I don't know. I do know this. I don't have any fear. I've had these things shine a light in here, right where I'm sitting right now in my office. To my right is a window. And I've had light shine in right on my arm, and I stand up and I go, and there's this triangular craft sitting right there in the sky that has shined this beam into my office. Now there seems to be this pattern of 3 triangular objects that come over my home almost every morning, and it's at different times. And what was it, the night before last? I believe it was, I want to say, somewhere around 3:30. You can hear these things first. They don't sound like a plane. There is a rumble, and then there's some kind of whistle. I've even heard on one occasion would sound like a trumpet sound coming from it, almost like a horn, but a trumpet type of sound. And I get up and go to the window, and there it is. So now what they're doing is one comes over, and then within 2 minutes of that, another one comes right behind it. And then within a couple minutes of that, a third one comes right behind it. And they are all going in the same direction, on most occasions, north, northeast. And the only thing that I can figure out, if this is some type of military craft or whatever, then I guess it would be heading up there towards Aberdeen Proving Ground, or somewhere somewhere in those areas there in Northeast Maryland. That's the only thing that I could figure, but I'm not convinced that they're entirely human, because I'll tell you, Lon, I've seen these objects, now especially these triangular objects, stop and hover in the sky, and then all of a sudden zip away with effortless exhilaration, that it could be in one spot hovering and then all of a sudden zipped away and probably 3-4 miles away from where it was just hovering at, effortlessly. I've seen them turn up on edge. I have seen them with these different light patterns. You see the lights on each corner, which is like a dull white light, but I've seen the bright light come from them, not only shining through my window, but at other times, shining down on things, there's always a red, like orange red light in the center. And I've also noticed now that the lights, the light on the, I guess if I'm looking at it, it would be on the left point. So it's 3 points, 3 lights. The light on the left side, all of a sudden would go into the, like this. It's been doing this lately, like a crescent type of shape. And it's like a powder blue, very light blue. And it goes into a crescent shape and sort of meets up with that red light and then goes back. So it flows down and flows back. It's very, very strange, bizarre. And thank God my wife has seen this with me. So it's not just me saying, oh, well, see this. And I've gotten some footage. But it's another weird thing, Lon. There have been times that I tried to get footage of it, and my battery, which is fully charged, would just completely die out. And that would be either phone battery, camcorder that it would have or whatever. It would just, the battery would just completely go. And so who is this? What is this? I don't know. I've had many divine experiences pertaining to UFOs. I had a 12-minute sighting. This was a couple years ago, right out of my bedroom window. Again, I think it was like, I don't know, 5:36 in the morning. Matter of fact, I think it was 5 a.m. and it lasted from 5 a.m. on the dot to 5:12 a.m. And there was a clock to my left, and I looked at it. And the first object came like a white light. It was a big white light right in front of me in the sky. And so what I did is, in the Bible, we're instructed to test the spirits. So what I did, I thought, okay, if this is evil, I'm going to try to evict it. And I said, by the mighty power of Yahweh and his mighty and holy name, in Yahshua Jesus the Christ's name, I bind and rebuke you and command you to depart at once. When I did that, it remained there. It didn't go anywhere. And so then a second one appeared behind it, just like out of nowhere. So now I got these 2 big white lights sitting right there, hovering in the sky right in front of me. So then I started to praise God, and I said, Father, I thank you and praise you for this blessed experience. And Lon, when I was doing that, every time that I said thank you and praise you, Father, the lights responded and got tremendously huge and just would burst with this incredible white light every time I praised God. So it was an amazing experience. And it lasted for 12 minutes. And then those things just blinked out and they were gone.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, Lon. It really has. I've experienced just about every type of phenomena there is. And I thank God for keeping me safe. But it's really been an interesting life for sure.
Well, Bill, how can folks get in contact with you and buy your books?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on, brother. It's always great.
Sure
You're my
thing.
dear friend, and it's always great to be on with you. And thank everybody out there for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. I hope all of you had a great Thanksgiving. If you're out there and you want to get a copy of the new book, just visit billbeanwarrior.com, www.billbeanwarrior.com, and you could get, or talesfromanexorcist.com. You could get a copy of the book. You could get it from Amazon, but you can also get it from me as well. If you want a signed copy, again, just go to the website, click on the button. I'll personally sign it to you and personally send it out to you as well. And same thing if you're in need of having any type of spiritual issues, just visit the site, billbeanwarrior.com, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible.
Well, Bill, thanks for coming on tonight. I'm very much appreciated, and good luck with the book, and keep in touch. That's all I can say.
Well, I want you to come back on my little show soon, and we'll do an update with
no problem.
that's going on. Love you, brother, and many blessings to you. And I just pray that your health continues to improve day by day. And I'll be keeping in touch with you, and I'll send you a date over and ask if you can make that date to come on. We're doing it at 11 o'clock on Friday nights now. I'm so busy now, I can't do it on Saturday nights anymore. So, but I'll be in touch with you about that, and look
Sounds
forward
good.
to coming on there.
Okay.
All right,
well,
brother.
you take care. Bye-bye. Now, if you have a sighting or encounter report that you'd like to be considered for the personal report show, or even on Phantoms and Monsters, please forward to my email at lonstrickler@phantomsandmonsters.com. I want to again thank Bill Bean for joining me this evening, and thanks to each and all of you for watching and chatting. Remember, please like, subscribe, and share, and please leave comments. We always welcome comments about the show and your thoughts. Now, next Friday, my guest will be British dark artist Sam Sheeran. We will discuss his artwork and his inspirations, and he's got a few stories too, from what I understand. Many of his pieces can be found throughout the paranormal world, including galleries, book covers, and other illustrations. So it should be an interesting conversation. And next Wednesday night at 9:00, we will be premiering Vincent Richardson's V show. So that'll be at 9:00 next Wednesday, the 30th. So make sure you tune in for that. Bernadette is not going to have a show tonight. So until we meet again, stay healthy and have a safe, enjoyable weekend. Good night.